You may not have heard of the Uniform Commercial Code, or the UCC, but it is the foundation of how all modern financial transactions are handled. And while very complex, understanding it gives a great insight as to how the banking game is played.
The entities who created this system understood that they could not control you, the flesh and blood you, but if they turned you into a corporation under the UCC law, then they would effectively be able to have that control.
Because the government created a situation when we're in perpetual debt, but that is unlawful. So they also gave us a remedy, a solution to fix it, but they hid it from us.
Whenever we're dealing in a business, then all countries and all corporations work under UCC.
Throughout history, law has been corrupted and used in many ways it was never intended to be used. Laws have also been created to control and enslave people for the sole benefit of those in power. Before the implementation of marine law, which was layered to exist over our already existing common law, in the United States of America, people were called sovereigns. That is, you were your own country. You were considered a soul, created by God, and you were born and owned your own body. Instead of a first and a last name, like you have today, you had what was called a Christian and family name. Not only did you own your own body, but you were completely responsible for it. You could use any substance you wished to your own benefit or peril. If two men consented to having a gunfight in the streets, to the death, it was their right as long as it was consensual. The sheriff would stand by to make sure no innocents got injured in what was a perfectly legal duel. Self-responsibility was the order of the day, which was either a blessing or a curse to the people. Common law ruled the land. Treat others the way you want to be treated, the real golden rule. Now, under common law, all interactions with your fellow man were and are some form of contract and consent. There were fewer layers of law in existence before the merging of common and marine law, and so, for example, there was no such thing as fraud, because as a sovereign who was personally responsible, at any time you could have said no. People had to be more diligent in who they dealt with, and thus, as reputation was actually considered important, people would try and honor their contracts and earn an honest living, using the court systems only for criminal prosecutions or contract disputes. Simpler times back then indeed, but also more primitive as well. Perhaps we're learning to say no again.
And if you look at the whole entire picture, the government is only your representative and representatives of your neighbors. So who are they to demand that you get a license in order to engage in an action which is fundamentally lawful?
If we don't make a stand, I mean, the reason that these guys have the power they have is because we don't say anything. It's this whole tacit agreement thing. And, you know, because we didn't stand up and make claims to stop the authorities from doing what they do, they've just sort of taken over. And so we're all running scared because we don't realize that all we have to do is say no.
You need to understand there's legal and lawful, and there's illegal and unlawful. Legal means you are operating correctly by the form or by the letter of the law. Lawfully tends to speak to the spirit of the law as opposed to the letter of the law.
If people really understood what's going on, we're too used to the rights we've had. It wouldn't be tolerated. If people really truly understood what was going on, there would be a major political reaction, and the people that are in power right now would not be there. And they don't want to take the chance. And that's what people have to understand, that there still is this vestige of democracy here, and we still should be exercising it before the police state apparatus descends that doesn't really and truly removes from us the capacity to take control of our destiny.
The founding fathers of the United States desired people to have the right to life, liberty, and property, along with the free will to enjoy them and the responsibility to respect the rights of others. After fighting their revolution for freedom from colonialism, the founders were intelligent enough to retain a healthy fear of the similar threats posed by corporate power and wisely limited corporations exclusively to a business role. In the United States of America, up until around the mid to late 1800s, in order to create a company or corporation, you would have to go through the arduous process of earning a charter from a particular state, which was both limited in duration and function, needing to be renewed, but also subject to rules, regulations, and heavy taxes. They were also mandated to serve the public interest, with profit being the result to shareholders who were part of the public. If they exceeded their authority, went against their charter, or went against the public interest, a corporation's charter could be revoked, rendering it invalid, and essentially destroying it in the legal sense. The concept of corporate personhood came about around this time, which quickly gained popularity with business leaders. Discussed and dissected at length in the brilliant film The Corporation, corporate personhood is the act of giving a company, which is a legal corporation or entity, the privileges of a regular human person, such as the ability to own property, hold assets, contribute to politics, or influence legislation. With this change in the law, the corporation had gained legal status along with rights and duties, becoming an artificial person.
A sovereign individual is a human who is no longer a corporation, thus no longer being ascribed by certain duties and rights.
What I uncovered was that when a person is registered from birth, it's at that point in time that they are actually being created, or that a legal person is being created and associated with them. And it's kind of like it's at that point where you join a club, and when you join this club, you're given, say, a membership card. The card itself would be your person, as opposed to the human being who is the member of the club.
Person is, even in English, person is a persona. So it's not really you, it's something that you're creating. So, from English to law, it means the same thing. It's an entity, something that you create or somebody else creates and you give power to.
Because we're all equal, nobody has a right to govern you without your consent. So they require evidence that you have consented to this. The person is that evidence, that card, or the your identification, which would identify you as a person. All of this is what they need to see so that they know that they do have the right to act upon you.
After the U.S. Civil War in 1868, a corporation was created by members of the Bank of England called United States Company. The owners of this company decided that the employees of the United States would not be called employees, but citizens. To run this corporation would be a board of directors called the United States government, and they would have a president just like any company. It would also have a constitution, just like the Republic called America, and people who signed up to be employee citizens would be given political and legal rights, like voting and owning land.
I think they did it when they got everyone to become a government employee. And then that's this way, where normally they would be our servants and we would be in charge of them. They tricked us all into getting social insurance numbers. These numbers identify us as a government employee. We're receiving benefits, as they call them, and therefore we are bound by the rules that bind all government employees. And so they've tricked us. We're a nation of people employed by the government, bound by the rules that the government makes, but only because we are employed by them.
However, there is a grand distinction between the United States Corporation, which is a company, and the United States of America,